Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Primal Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Paige Strickland. Looking forward to our conversation, Paige.
Glad to be here, Simon. Thank you.
So this is the first interview I've done in a couple of weeks. I've been back because I've been away on holiday, vacation. So
I thought tan.
I like me with the tan. I don't know what it is. I think it's got something to do with in my single days. I think I felt a bit more attractive to girls, with the
Feel
tan.
cooler.
Yeah,
Feel
cooler. Yeah. And it's pretty mild here in the UK at the moment, but we are going to get some chilly stuff. Yeah. What's it like with you?
We've had a real easy February. I mean, it's all relative, right? But yeah, usually I was mentioning before we were on the air, this is our long weekend that between Valentine's and President's Day in the United States. This is usually in Ohio, in Cincinnati, Ohio. This is the worst weather weekend of the entire year. Something almost always happens, or it just lingers and doesn't go. And the snow is melted, the sun is out, it's 40, which I don't know the centigrade what that would be, but it's maybe 20 in centigrade. I don't know.
I'm not sure either. I use both of them, but I don't know how to convert.
I don't know. I've got my little app, but my phone's plugged in charging right now, so I can't cheat. But yeah, it's like, this isn't bad compared to what we usually feel like we're in Alaska right now. And it's good.
It's good. Good. So healing, we're talking about healing today. So what does healing mean to you, Paige?
Okay. And again, it's only my point of view.
Indeed, that's what we're after.
Right?
That's what we're after.
Yeah. So I'm not saying I have all the right answers, but I know what works for me. And I'll show you. I was writing down notes.
Some preparation.
Yeah.
Like love this. Love this. Yeah.
Homework a little bit. I know what worked for me to feel healed. And just because I consider myself a healed person in terms of adoption, that doesn't make me the happy adoptee. Okay, let's put that out there right now. I'm the thinking adoptee, but I think you can be more than one thing also. So for me, it started with attending a cub meeting, Concern United Birth Parents, CUB, finding my voice, my starter voice, because I grew up really, some of it was self-imposed and some of it was society imposed. I just knew better than to speak out about adoption or talk or ask questions. So I kind of went into this emotional hidey hole and just not going to discuss it, going to pretend it doesn't exist. It's not real. That's not me. That's just a word, that kind of thing. I've never told friends, and it was like, that was the start of like that coming out of the fog, which for me, that was the healing, was finding a place where I could safely speak my mind with other people that would not shoot me down or gaslight or whatever term you want to use for that. And then it was
there a specific moment like in one of those talks that really hit you? Or
I don't know about a specific moment. I just know the first time I went, it was a bigger deal than I imagined. And it was one of these where everybody kind of had to go around the room and, hello, my name is, I'm an adoptee kind of thing, or hello, my name is, and I'm a birth parent, or hello, my name is, I'm an adoptive parent. And I had never said those kind of words before to anybody. And I was 26, 27. But I mean, other than my husband, he's the only person I didn't keep the secret from. But anybody else, I'd never said things like that. I didn't have people I could say those things to. And that was a huge, huge thing, to be able to speak the words and then say either anything I was glad about or what I was not glad about, or what bothered me or what worried me, or the things you think that you're afraid to tell people what you think. And that's what we were able to do. And then from there too, it was also being able to ask for help. If I want to search, what would I do? How would I go about it? Because I know you don't just ring doorbells and go down to the courthouse or something. You have to, there are ways, to make it work.
Did you have
And
to did you have to pluck up a lot of courage to actually book yourself on that
to go to the meeting,
at the club, yeah, or was that just a no-brainer, or was that
no, that I think I'd been working up that courage probably my whole life, or at least my over age 18 life.
wow,
Because yeah, it's like, again, I've never been to any kind of a support group before that. Didn't have other issues where I had to go to support
yeah,
groups or anything. And so that was big for me to do that. And there were probably 15 or so people in the room, which, it wasn't like three people sitting there.
yeah, yeah.
It was like 15 people in there, and mixed age ranges from I know me and one friend, we're still good friends to this day. And, we're talking going back almost 40 years, that we met there, and we were the two youngest people probably in the room, and all the way on up in ages up to probably people in their 60s at the time. And since where Cincinnati is located, we border with Indiana and Northern Kentucky. So it was people from three different states really that kind of came together in the part of town where it was. And it was, yeah, I didn't know a soul when I walked in. That's the other thing, room full of strangers. I teach for a living, but if you pay me money, it's a little easier. When
Yeah.
it's kids, more than they know, it's easier, but a room full of peers, it was like, I don't know what I
Yeah.
got myself to do here. But that was the start of, for me, it was finding a group, finding people, finding, even if it's some people come and go and you never see them again in a meeting, they got what they needed, they're done, or they weren't satisfied and they go off. But it's just still having a place I could go once a month and speak my mind and ask my questions. That was a big deal. And it's awful. There's so many people that don't have things like that. And it doesn't matter what the issue is. It could be, I don't know, any topic that you need a support system for, quit smoking or anything, and if you don't have the people, I work in a school system. Last week, we had a threat situation. It turned out to not happen. Everybody's safe. A, a kid spoke up because he found somebody safe he could go to say, look, I don't know what's going to happen and I'm scared, but this is what this guy told me and his friend, and I got to tell somebody. I can't keep this to myself. He found people. He found somebody he could go to, that then they were able to turn it over to the school authorities and the police. We're safe. Everything's taken care of at this time. And it was just like, so whatever your topic is that you need safe people for, whatever you need to have your people, whoever they are, it doesn't matter their age, it doesn't matter where they come from or anything like that. And that was a great thing about these meetings, was I was in a room with people who understand, and some might view maybe the adoptive parents or even the birth parents as being on the opposing team. But really in that room, the focus was, no, we all got a stake in this. We've all got a hand in this, and we're all civil in this. And yeah, so that was a great thing that I could see that, and interact with people. And they were all very nice. And it was fun too. We'd order food and eat and hang out. And then I guess after that, it's like going back for another piece of pie. Now that I had people, now I wanted to go get my information. And so that was the next thing. And then seeing the information, receiving it, and then processing it and having that, and then I've got my group of people. I can go share my information with them and say, looky what I found. Look what I found out. Guess who lied?
Yeah.
Guess who got something right? All that stuff. And then I went on the search and found out more information that wasn't on paper. And then reading, learning, anything I could get, any book I could get my hands on. And back in the 80s, there wasn't much. And if it existed, it wasn't known either. So, the Betty Jean Lifton books were out. Um, and I think the Anna Fisher book was out, Searching for Anna Fisher, I think it's called. I read those. That was about all that I was aware of that was out. But the people at Cub recommended those books, and I happened to have a job, a retail job at nights and weekends in the mall, and the bookstore was right next door. So on my break, I'd just run over there, buy books, and then.
And do you remember are there any particular moments, obviously it's sort of going back a while back, but were any particular moments or insights that you had from reading the books, the Betty Jean Lifton books, or any?
It was, wow, somebody thinks like I do, or somebody has the answers to some of the questions I had that weren't necessarily particular to my birth family, but just in the general sense of what do you do? How do you react? Is this normal the way I'm feeling? That kind of thing. So it was another way to find people, although they were more or less virtual in the day people, but it was another way to get some validation for what, has been rolling around in your head for so long.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah,
it's a relief then. A relief then. Is it?
A relief. Yeah, that hey, I'm not weird. I'm not, well, maybe I'm weird, but I'm not that weird.
We're all weird, right?
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I'm like, okay, that kind of thing. Yeah, but learning even things about just history, any self-education that you can do rather than denying it, I think is healthy, because then if you want to think what you want to think, but at least you've been educated.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't care if somebody's a happy adoptee, but are you an educated happy adoptee versus that's just the only thing you think and you don't want to hear what anybody else has to say, kind of thing. But yeah, it's like politics. You got to kind of look at everything and then make up your mind, about what's going on.
So there's so many, obviously the internet wasn't around when you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's so many virtual groups now.
Right.
How do you see the difference between the impersonal groups and the virtual groups?
Well, virtual means you might have a limit to the connection you can have with the person, but on the flip side, okay, take me here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and you're where in England?
Near York, in the north of England, yeah.
Okay. I mean, wow, thousands of miles apart. You couldn't have gotten that a long time, and that's cool too. And, coming from, by trade, I'm a Spanish teacher, so other people's cultures, the way other people live, not just the language part, but just all the things that are similar and different that you don't realize, you can learn all those things about people. You never know too, if you go searching like I did, you're going to find people that may not live in the same kind of culture, even in the same country that you have, or they enjoy or like different things, or they know things you know because of the way they've lived versus the way you live. And yeah, I mean, I feel like that helped me, to like go at it when I did do my search and when I did reunite that was another part of the healing, was being able to, and I get it, not everybody gets as lucky as I got, but to be able to have, those relationships and add on to your life in a good way.
Yeah.
So, but I know that, that doesn't happen for everybody, but you do the best you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it does. And I just wanted to mention something on that reunion piece, because it doesn't always work out the way that it doesn't always the way that we think we want it to work out, and yet we learn.
Yeah.
We learn, even if it doesn't go the way we expected it. So I haven't shared this on the podcast before because I hadn't told my mum about it. But and I don't think she listens to the podcast, but I didn't want her to listen to an odd one. But I contacted my birth father completely out of the blue from his perspective a few months back, and he blew me out. I mean, he didn't hang up the phone with me. He asked me a few tricky questions, and then he said, "Don't call this number again."
Ooh, yeah.
And yeah, you know, I ended the call, and I'm not going to contact him again. And yet, that set me thinking. That set me thinking. Number one, I didn't get upset by him blowing me out. So I saw my own resilience in that moment. But it also got me thinking about, well, what would life been like if he had married my birth mum? He clearly didn't love her, else he would have stuck with her. He would have married her, right? Because they've been dating 5 months. But what if he'd done? What if he'd done the right thing in inverted commas and married her? Then, but he didn't love her, so I would have grown up in a household where the dad didn't love the mum, and how would that have been? And how could he have resented me and all this sort of stuff? And you know, like, so although it's not what I would have wanted, it has led me to a sense of peace and some new thoughts around this.
Right.
And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have got that. I would have just, you know. So I'm. This is supposed to be about your learnings, but it's. I think it's really important that we see that reunion, even if it doesn't go to plan, can lead to some insights, and of course it sometimes goes completely trash, but at least we know it goes to hell. We go to hell, but at least kind of like we know, and we that's where I was thinking. So I was thinking I would never, if I hadn't asked, if I hadn't done it, then I would have never known, and that never knowing would have bugged me.
Right. Yeah. It's I mean, that's the one thing I feel like that Cub group really prepared me well for. Expect the unexpected, and just put all your fantasies or your imagination of what these other people are like aside, and just like, that's like a TV show, or you meet a celebrity and they turn out to not be like the person you would think they were just because you saw them on a TV show or a movie, or sports or something, you know. And so yeah, that really helped to have this community of people that could kind of like give you the warnings you need.
Yeah.
Which it's preventative for healing. It's preventative care, which is all part of just in general any kind of healing, if you think about it. You know, that's so yeah.
People talk about having no expectations going into the union, and like whether we're actually capable of that, I don't know. Another thing that I've had from somebody who's been on the show was, we've probably done some work, right? You'd done some work before you got back into, you know, started on the reunion page,
right.
And but that doesn't always happen. So although we may have done some work, our birth parents, our birth mum, might not have done any work. So we shouldn't expect them to have done work, and so they might still be stuck in the place where they were all those years ago when they when they relinquished us, you know, or when they placed us.
And they pretty much, I know from what I know, well, my birth mother ended up deceased, which I had a gut feeling about that was totally illogical, but I had this gut feeling that that had happened to her, because that would be one explanation for, and although it's not like she died in childbirth, but
Yeah.
she died when I was 13 or so,
Wow.
maybe 14. But I just kind of, in my mind, I think that's how I coped when I was a kid, was she's probably dead anyway, you know, kind of that kind of thinking. And then it turned out to be real. So I was prepared for that when I got that news, and my brain went, I knew it all along. Huh.
Yeah.
More than,
Yeah.
yeah. But I got the rest of her family though. So there is that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
And she told everybody, which was pretty lucky. Not every birth parent does that, but she had told everybody in her family
Wow.
that she, had the hope that either she could find me or I could find her, although nobody knew how you're going to do it, but
Yeah. Powerful. Powerful.
yeah. So yeah, whether or not she had any chance herself of healing, I've often wondered that. But I don't really know. But at least she was able to talk about it with my older sister, to prepare her,
Yeah.
and for in case you get a call or a letter in the mail someday. And it's I've often thought too, like in the modern world, if I hadn't done the research when I did it in the 80s, we would have probably, my sisters and I would have found each other on MySpace and Facebook at some point, and of course Ancestry too,
Yeah.
later on in life. But man, I'm glad we got the 30 or so years before all of that was available to us.
Yeah.
So, to have that time. So, but yeah, and I know my birth father hadn't done any work. He was exactly like me. He was like, let's just forget about this. Make like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Just move on. He never told his kids. He did tell his wife, but he did not tell his kids, and made his wife swore her to secrecy. So he hadn't done the work, but I was prepared for that also. So,
Yeah.
like, hey, he needs a little time and coaching and you know
Are you,
understanding.
is he still alive? Are you still in touch with him?
Well, I'm in touch with the family. He passed away in 2015, but like Super Bowl Sunday, which probably means nothing to you all in England, but we were together that night here. So
Yeah.
one game with them. So
Well, I've just come back from holiday. We were in St. Kitts, so actually Super Bowl Sunday was happening while we were there. So we did
yeah,
a bit of it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I was going to ask where you went to get that tan. So the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah. And I guess the other thing I wrote down here was that, and you're kind of into the metaphor thing. I get that
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
from the, like, okay, if you have a real wound, like ow, I need stitches kind of wound, um, it'll form a scab and or a scar, and it's considered healed, but you might always have that scar forever. That doesn't really go away. So healing is kind of all relative. You just get to this point where it's not going to wreck your life or your relationships or your job or anything else going on, and you just go with it, and you go, that's a thing that happened, sucks, or it's bummer or whatever, but here I am now, here's what I do now. It's, I can do these things, I can do those things. And again, if you've got your people, you got your safe people, your good people. And I count dogs and cats with that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That therapy, the thing, real, and it's for everybody. Yeah. Um,
So the scar means it's benign, right? It's not hurting
right,
anymore.
right. It's not going to stop you from anything if you don't let it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I was thinking on that.
Because
Yeah.
people say that time. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just, you're healed when triggers don't get you down and keep you down. Because that's like re-injuring. If you re-injure your injury, that's what that is. But again, bounce back from it and have that, like you said, resilience to just like, well, crap, and then you just go on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cussing some people. I'm be very honest about that. Cussing helps some people.
Yeah. So people say this thing that time is the biggest healer. Don't you say that thing? But I don't think it is, because I think it's what happens over that time rather than the time itself, right?
Right. It's not the only thing. It's part of the process. It's part of what can heal, but it's not the solution for somebody who gets stuck and stays stuck. So obviously then time isn't helping, but it can help if you play it the right way. And that's other things to do that make you feel healed, make you feel empowered, make you feel like you can get through things, or it distracts you from whatever it is that's unsolvable and bothering you.
Yeah. So
So
I like the bit that you said about being triggered less and not triggered for so long. You said so. There's two things there. It's less external things upset us, number one, and when they upset us for a shorter period of time.
at a time,
like we bounce back, like we
right,
bounce back quicker.
right,
Two different things there. Yeah.
yeah.
So if time isn't the greatest healer, what do you think is, or what do you think are some of the?
See, I think that's different for each person. So I think time is a part of it, but really I think having your people is probably, at least for me anyway, that's your biggest one. Having people you can talk to, and be with and feel safe with and comfortable with. And again, whatever you say, whatever you think, they won't judge you for it
Yeah.
or start an argument.
I,
What
I
you're
heard
saying.
something. I heard something along that point. Well, I hadn't joined the dots together, so maybe this will make sense. But somebody said it takes an experience to counter an experience, right? So we've had this experience of relinquishment, which we can't remember, right?
All right.
It's pre.
Can't specifically remember, but yeah.
Yeah.
The body.
Also, yeah, some of us can't remember. Shall I to be precise? Yeah, some of us, like, I don't remember. Like it was, I was relinquished twice. So I was put into short-term foster care for a while, and then then my birth mother had to come and collect me from that short-term foster care and take me to the agency, right, or the council it was. So she had to relinquish me twice. Once to the short-term foster family, and then once to kind of my mum, dad. I don't have any recollection of either those two, because it must have happened at 1 week and like 5 weeks old, something like that.
Yeah.
So we don't have any recollection of it, but it's an experience, right? So the experience can only be counted by an experience, the experience of being with those people in the room and at the cub retreat. And that really landed for me, because I've been thinking before, sometimes I think that and I've said that insight is the greatest healer. Time isn't the greatest healer. Insight is. So when we see the world differently,
right,
when we see the world, when we see, like you talked about, the validation. You said somebody else thinks like us. Your book, reading the Betty Jane Lifton book, somebody else thinks like me, right? So you have a new thought about your thought, and that's validating and a relief, I think.
Yeah.
We kind of, so that's one thing. And insight can lead, an insight is a part of our healing, but it's almost as if it's bigger than that. It's actually an experience, right?
Yeah.
It's an experience, the experience of being in the room. So it's bigger than just an insight, and an experience is bigger than an insight, and that's what we're looking for, which is why we have to kind of go continue along the trail that you've laid out.
Yeah. And I think, just the more knowledge you can attain about either your own personal story or the topic of adoption in general, the more secure you're going to feel about your thoughts. You're going to be less rattled by the people that decide they're going to be negative or just, again, start up an argument. Because you've done the reading, you've done the work, and then I don't know, the other thing that works for me, along with cussing, find the humor. There's, whether you're laughing at stupid rules, stupid things people say, we could all make a list of all the dumb things people say, and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe somebody blurt that out, or, make that comment or whatever. And I mean, it's like, yeah, you can get PO'd about it, but you can also just go, ha, like, what an idiot, laugh it off.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of people, get me included, right? Get very upset about other people being upset.
Yeah. And
I think the other thing that comes to my mind is the courage that you've had. Right, it took courage at the age of whatever it was. 20, did you say 26, 27? It took courage to go to the.
I started going to the meetings. Yeah, and it was, we had seen something on a TV talk show about adoption, and I wasn't going to watch it, but my husband was curious, and he was, aren't you curious at least a little bit? Don't you want to? And so, all right, I'll watch it if you want to watch it. So we're watching it, and then it just kind of went, the more I saw, the more intrigued I was. And then I realized it's okay to be interested. It's okay. My husband, I can count him among my safe people. He's not adopted, but he gets it as much as a non-adopted person can get it. But he is like, okay. So, okay, you're not going to be like, aren't you grateful, or do any of those kind of remarks? If I wanted, no, he was kind of like, that's your story, that's your thing. If you want to do it, go for it.
Yeah.
So
there's a curiosity before the courage, or on top of the courage, or mixed in with it.
Yeah, for me, it was, I think the curiosity was, whatever happened, what happened. I mean, this is not this simple cut dry story that some agency gave my parents. That's all my parents know. I'm sure my parents didn't really lie. They were misinformed, or just there were lots of gaps in the information, and they had no way of realizing that there were gaps in the information they were given, about what happened and why I was relinquished and that kind of thing. So, and it was helpful too with my mom's reaction when I told her that, I was going to start doing this. And she was, well, I would do it if it were me. That was like one of the most validating things at that time anybody could have said to me, because, okay, and I trusted her opinion because she's a pretty smart and educated person and reasonable, that she probably would do it if it were her. I can see my mom doing that if that had been the case, and so yeah, and to this day, if I'm visiting my mom, she lives about 15 minutes from here. She's going to be 94 pretty soon. She's in a nursing home. But I think, oh, mom, I got to go. My adoption group is meeting tonight. Okay. She's cool. She knows that's been a huge part. Now it's that Friday night happy hour that the NAP
Yeah,
does, I just call 'em my adoption group because it's the easiest way to explain
yeah,
it.
of course.
But that's, or last year when I went to the one in Louisville, the live convention, and talk about healing and talk about being with your people. Oh man, if you ever, I know it cost a fortune to get there, but if you could ever go, oh my gosh, and they had a podcasters table at the last one. So you were podcasting, you had a place, so cool.
So this, you're talking about still healing 40 years on, right?
It's ongoing, yeah. And now it's like I've made connections I don't want to lose, just as if they were friends that I met for any other reason or circumstance. It's like when you're in touch with somebody you worked with 20 years ago or something and you're still friends. It's kind of like that. And yeah, so I it's nice to go get reaffirmed. It's nice to just go hang out with people that everybody's story is. So that's why on my blog I read a lot of books about adopted people and then review them and put it up there and try to copy it to Amazon and that kind of thing, um, because everybody's story is so amazing. There's no, just like everything, there's no two stories that are alike. Even if, yeah, I went through that same agency, my parents did too. Yeah, yeah, same year, yeah, but still, it's not going to be the same story. So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool. And everybody's reunion story, if they have one, they're all unique. So, and that's, you get to experience all that when you go to those. So I can't go to the Denver one. It doesn't hit at my spring break at school. And I can't take off the amount of days that I would have to take off to go to that. But
Yeah.
I would have loved to have gone because I've never been to Colorado.
So I've met a couple of local adoptees now, because as you say, flying to Denver for me would be, I don't know, £1,000. I don't know what it would be, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've met a couple of guests that have been on the podcast. I've met them face to face now, so that's, and hopefully I will continue to do more of that. But 40 years and 40 plus years of healing, it just underlines that ongoing nature of it and the richness of it, and also this richness of the in-person the in-person contact.
Yeah, you always meet too. I mean, you connect with the people and you've known them now for a few years or whatever, but then you always meet somebody new that, like, you go, wow,
Yeah, it's good.
more. Yeah, I got more people.
Yeah. You were talking earlier on about technology, and I really don't think that without COVID, I wouldn't be doing this podcast, because we wouldn't have had the mass uptake of Zoom, and that
Right.
allows us to be 4,000 miles away or whatever it is to Ohio from near York. Yeah. So my village the village I live in is called my village. So I'm not the squire of the village, right? So the village I live in is called Hunsinger, which is a bit of a mouthful, but so it's easiest for me to say, near York. I remember talking to a fellow adoptee who a while ago, and I said, "So where are you?" She said, "I'm in my kitchen." And I said, oh, "Okay, no, but whereabouts in the country?" She said, "I'm in the Northwest." And I said, "Well, where?" She said, "It wouldn't be appropriate for me to share that with you." And I just thought, isn't that strange? We've connected on
Yeah.
Facebook, but she clearly didn't feel safe, right? Dan, I'm thinking, it's a tricky thing. So you found safety in that online, in the sorry, not in online, in that face to face group, whereas others don't find it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's not like I work for the FBI or so
No.
where I have to be secretive about my life and where I'm at or anything like that or you know. So
Is there anything that you felt that you feel has kind of hindered your healing on over those years?
um not since I started getting active and being able to express my curiosity and my feelings. Um, it's the negative people that say, for lack of a better term, dumbass remarks that, yeah, again, I can laugh at it going, that's the stupidest thing I've heard all day, because I know, but other people might not, or they're just so burned out on hearing things like that over and over and over. They start to wonder, well, then is it me? And it's like,
Yeah,
no, it's not you. But it's, you start questioning your own, you know, that's the worst thing I think for people is just hearing either negative talk or just invalidating speech from other people.
yeah,
Um,
it's tough.
or isolation again. Isolation's a whether literal physical isolation, like you're not around a soul, or you don't even hang out online, you don't know people anywhere, you don't have people, you don't have your group, people that don't have families around, um they're not working, or they're working from home and not connected with people. That's hard. That's
Yeah,
real hard.
yeah. I mean, I've worked from home for a long time, and
Yeah.
did occasionally found it isolating.
Hmm.
But I go for a swim at lunchtime, so sometimes it's just if I haven't spoken to anybody all morning, then it's the connection with those people at the swimming pool, the staff and the other
Right.
fellow swimmers. And I think it is for me. It's important. It's vital. I
Hmm.
couldn't be doing
Yeah.
it. And since I started doing the podcast a couple of years ago, whatever, that's brought my afternoons tend to be full with that anyway. So
Yeah.
that connection has been a big thing for me, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't really have an exit plan for retiring at work. I like what I do. I like the people I deal with every day. And what else would I do?
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I don't sit at home and eat junk food all day. You know, I,
So it's a
I
high school, presumably. If
I'm
you're
in a junior this year,
junior
but
high,
I've been in all grade levels
yeah,
in all the buildings in my district, but yeah, currently in the junior high.
junior high. So I've done a bit of work in elementary schools, what we call primary schools over here in the
Mhm.
UK, and also in elementary schools in the US. I did come over to the US last March, worked in South Carolina, in Greenwood, South Carolina. And the reason I'm sharing this, I'm kind of revving up to the one of the things I used to talk to these kids about and listen into their experiences as well was around bullying. And I
Yeah.
think that one of the things, bullies attack us, and we think it's personal,
Hmm.
and we think they make it personal to us. So for me,
Hmm.
it was around me having buck teeth. It was a school that I went to, all sorts of little silly things. But the bullies made it about me,
Right. Yeah.
when it's really about them. And the parallel that I'm drawing here is that the dumbass question, the
Yeah.
dumbass comments that
Yeah.
you're talking about. It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
Feel
It,
like
it
you're being, yeah.
it's there. We
Yeah.
we take it personally, right? But
Yeah.
but it's their ignorance, and
It's there.
it's their ignorance, or whatever it is, their lack of manners, their poor, their poor raising, the stuff. What it is always about them, and it's never about and never about us. And the more deeply we can see that it's about them, the less
Correct.
bothered and the less personally we'll take it. Right?
Yeah, that's why I'm like, because I've written a couple books, but I'm working on another one that's basically done, but you're never done till you're done, kind of thing. But it's more geared to the kids, the reading level of the kids I work with now. Although anybody could read it, but it's kind of a fifth grade on up book, simpler wording, semi book in verse, where it's not necessarily all rhyming because there's no way I can be Dr. Seuss. but it's that kind of a book, and yeah, and it addresses the bullying part of it. I think that was one of the things that held me back for a long time, and being afraid to talk about being adopted was because I knew I went to school with people. I knew I could guarantee it. They would have used that against me in some kind of a way. And, whether it was the bastard thing or the people didn't want you thing or the something must be wrong with you thing or the whatever,
Yeah.
the idiots say, but yeah. And
because I've obviously talked to a lot of adults about this, and I've talked to a lot of kids about this, and it's a lot harder for us to get this as adults, to not take stuff personally. The kids,
right.
when you express it to them, the penny tends to drop a lot easier talking to kids.
Yeah.
And I have, a couple of months ago, actually, I saw some research. I don't know whether it was UK or US or where it was, but we are, as adoptees, more likely to be bullied.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And because they're picking on they're picking on anything that makes us different, like makes anybody different. Having red,
Right.
wearing
Right.
glasses, like me
Yeah.
having stuck out teeth.
Yeah. And like, yeah, money, all kinds of things. And I think the bullying issues, at least here, are being addressed in schools more than like when we were growing up. And if you did tell the teacher or you told your parents, people just called you a tattletale and to get over it, or to just like, oh, don't let that bother you. Well, how do you not let it bother you? The fact that it does bother you
Yeah.
is the reason why you're not pathological and sociopathic yourself. I
Yeah.
mean, it's wrong, right from wrong. And but now they're working with the kids on this so much more. And there's that hidden subversive, I don't know if that's the right word, where there's kind of bullying going on, but it's not obvious to other people sometimes. And it might be the thing where you exclude somebody from eating with you at lunch, and there's no good reason in the world for it.
Yeah.
There's everybody shows up wearing a yellow shirt to school and they didn't tell you, and you're there in purple and nobody told you, now you feel foolish, kind of thing. And then the internet bullying and stuff like that. So it's being addressed now because all the teachers, again, we've all grown up. We know it's real, and we don't have people that we can go to complain about it now, but we sure know how to help everybody else up and coming. Yeah, we know this is real. We're not going to deny it. We're not going to tell you to just grow up and get over it, because obviously that doesn't work.
No.
You got to deal with it. You have some coping things, or again, I go back to my safe people thing for the kids, and then be open to listening to them talk about what it is specifically. And you never know, it could be something really severe, like a bad threat, or it's because somebody doesn't have cool shoes. You don't know.
Taking it back to us as grown-ups, or grown-ups in inverted commas, I think the the answer to us being less triggered by other people is the depth to which we get that, to the depth to which we understand that feelings are only an inside job. They only ever come from us. They don't come, they're not core. It's not, the outside world does not cause how we feel inside. It's that.
It's how we feel on the inside and then how we act on it and deal with the world. Yeah, it goes the other way.
It's that, like, I used to think that understanding was a yes no thing, but it's not. It's a matter of degrees. The degree to which we see that feelings are an inside job, and that is an infinite. That's like a bit like healing, actually. That's an infinite. That
yeah,
really has
what to do with how. Yeah.
So, Paige, you mentioned your blog, you mentioned your books. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that in the show notes there's a link to the last episode when you kindly came on, and a link to your socials, and a link to your blog in the website if people want to hold in and find out more.
Okay.
Is there anything else you'd like to share? Something that I've not asked you about?
No, I mean, I'm pretty good. You know, I'm, like I said, other ways to cope. One thing I do that kind of works for me, if you can find something creative or just fun to do, or, you know, people draw, people paint, people do clay, they, you know, music people, which I can't read a note. I'm not musical at all. All I can do is put on music and
rock it out. Yeah. Did you
exercise?
Did you happen to listen to the podcast with Jill Bolte Taylor? Have you heard about her?
I'm not sure. I may,
Okay.
but when was it?
It was a few weeks ago, maybe.
Okay.
She's a she's a neuroanatomist, so she's kind of but we went into why we explored, or she shared why that works, right? So the right hand, the inner critic, of which we adoptees have a particularly strongly voiced inner critic, right? That's the left brain. The inner critic lives in the left brain, whereas the creative, the right hand brain is our creative bit. So we're actually connecting with our innate creativity with the right hand brain. And music, like you said, you know, whatever, that's why it works, because we're moving our focus. We're not living out of our left brain inner critic. We're into our right brain, that's expressing our creativity. It's accessing different parts of the brain.
Yeah. And I don't know, you know, if genetically there's any truth to the musical talent thing, or if that's more of a cultural thing.
Sure.
You know, yeah, I don't know how any of that works. My dad that raised me, he couldn't read the notes, but he could play by ear, and he could play guitar and piano. Wow. And pretty decently, considering he never had a formal lesson in his life.
Yeah.
And he had an uncle that was only 8 years older than him. So it was more like having a big brother that he was half raised with. And that's who taught him. And that guy too, I don't think he ever had a formal music education, but he could play instruments just by and wow. And the uncle's daughter, she actually had actual music training, but it came really easy.
Yeah.
And she was really good at it. And the uncle's other two sons, they're they grew up, you know, they're 7 years older than I am, so they kind of grew up with all the 60s and 70s rock, and they formed their own little bands and all that kind of stuff. And you know, that I don't know if they had formal training, maybe in school, you know, music when you join the band in school, that they got training that way. But they, again, it's all like in my dad who raised me's family, there's a lot of musical people with that ability. And obviously I couldn't inherit any of that. The culture didn't bring it to me. And yeah, they tried me on piano lessons and I was completely turned off. It just
didn't work for you.
Didn't work. Yeah.
But the writing sure does though, right?
Right. And see, and that's the funny thing. When I found my birth family, I found people who write. Because when I met one of my cousins, and it was, oh my God, you write too? Me too. What do you write? You know, it was,
brilliant.
Yeah. So yeah, you wonder if some of those skills and things, where they really come from. You know, I mean, I know you can pick it up in a culture, but yeah, I would have been that misfit in the couldn't do it no matter how much your culture tried to make you do something or get you to do something, you know. But oh, at least my parents didn't over push on the music, because, and I had, because I was again in foster care for so long, my space to move around was very limited to just like the playpen. And because there were other kids, and it was, you know, a way to deal with a whole bunch of kids at the same time. And so my motor skills were real lacking. And I was late at doing everything physical. So I'm gym class flunky. I mean, yeah, talk about something to get bullied for when you suck in gym.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last kid picked, right? Because they know you're going to miss that ball every time, you know, or you can't make that basket, and yeah, that kind of thing. So yeah, that and everybody in my birth father's family, they're sporty people.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it's like, oh, and here I am on the benches again.
Oh,
you know, they both had the sport knowledge and the sporting abilities. So but yeah, so it's funny how
these things work out.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Paige, and I really enjoyed listening in on 40 years of healing, and long may it continue.
Yeah, it's been fun. Yeah, it's even healing to talk like this again. Yeah. Somebody that gets it, and hopefully other people out there listening go, oh yeah, you know, and can relate, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's what we're aiming for. Yeah. Thanks, Paige. Thanks for listening.
All right, Simon. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. We'll speak to you very soon. Take care.
Okay. Bye.